Hello, thank you for accepting my poster at the Digital Research Conference in Oxford. This poster is called Open Access UK, Challenges, Reality Check and Recommendations. Essentially, what I am trying to do in this video is to provide a very quick overview with a verbal commentary of what the poster is about. So the problem that I was facing at this stage was that turns out, based on the open access monitor audits carried out and presented in the related poster, that over 50% of the projects we surveyed do not seem to adhere to open access policies. Certainly, we could not find any resource whatsoever published on the web in relation to certain publicly funded projects. So the big question was why? A showing pointing to a very large and complex, socio-technical, messy, intractable problem space. In order to tackle this particularly large and messy problem space, mixed method approach was adopted. I combined evidence-based research with mixed method research. The interesting, as this is shown in the first table in the poster, in the first column of the poster, and in particular I adopted FOI requests to cross-validate, triangulate, so to speak, the outcomes of certain email exchanges. I was given contradictory information by respondents, sometimes very foggy information and sometimes contradictory altogether. And so I issued FOI requests to see what would the official answer be, and I was surprised that very often the official answer would be third answer altogether, contradicting both answers. But it was interesting to integrate FOI requests in our research methodologies. Apparently this is fairly new. And then of course the audit components. Everything was then systematically reviewed and a meta-analysis carried out. So the second table in the poster shows a summary of the findings and recommendations. Research literature review yielded a couple of gaps, showing that there is no in a recent paper that discusses the future of knowledge sharing research. There is no mention of policies, so the recommendation is please include policies in your future for knowledge sharing research. The challenges for doctoral research in systems engineering do not include knowledge, access, and reuse. This is another corpus, another piece of work. And I said, well, for doctoral researchers in systems engineering, getting access to research finding is an issue, so include that. That was a recommendation. Research component 1 is policy evaluation. I looked at different policies at different levels for knowledge sharing and open access, and found that there are 2 or 3 different types of policies, but they're not necessarily aligned. So the recommendations there were harmonize, specify, make sure that they do specify. I am actually discussing this in more detail in a different work, but specify policy means that socio-technical policies should be specified in terms of which artifacts and good practices should be adopted, but this is not done yet. And then fact-checking, thinking and using URIs. Research component 2 is the actual audits themselves. I carried out a set of audits which are presented in a related paper, and the recommendation there was monitor, legislate, and adopt shared structured knowledge schemas. Adopting shared knowledge schemas sounds possibly trivial to the knowledge engineering or web science community, but it's definitely not trivial and not understood and not done in the engineering community, and certainly not in the systems engineering community, according to my work. And then a set of overall general recommendations. So in column 2 of the poster, I briefly comment on some of the findings or the main findings, and I think what this poster is trying to say, the point of this poster is that although these recommendations address each finding or a component or a fragment of the problem space, it's only when they're adopted in combination that they function as a systemic solution to a systemic problem or a systemic challenge or a set of systemic challenges. So, for example, to monitor the adherence to a knowledge sharing um, or open access policy sustainably with contained effort and limited burden to the taxpayer, which is prescribed in Recommendation 6, it is necessary to adopt appropriate artifacts, for example, use URIs to share knowledge, which is described in Recommendation 8, which in turn can be achieved by an appropriately detailed level of policy specification, which is recommended in Recommendation 4. In turn, needs pointing to suitable artifacts adoption, which is Recommendation 7. So what I think this poster, the point this poster makes is that we have a socio-technical problem space, open access, and the adoption of open access policies and mandates is not a trivial it's a problem, it's a complex one, and it requires a very broad research approach to be investigated, the outcome of which is likely to see a set of fragmented findings and recommendations and solution need to also be addressing different levels of the problem space, but used in combination. So the suggestion is we can solve this problem if we find how all this the dependencies between the different type of solution provided. So thank you very much for listening, and I may be looking for postdoc opportunities, so if you're interested, get in touch. I look forward to doing a bit more work on this, and well, thank you. See you next time.